This is the value of wrestling, the revolutionary force in wrestling podcasting.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Story Time. Today we're going to dive in depth into the story of the future of the biggest name in wrestling right now. He's being talked about all over NXT. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about the one, the only Lexis King. Join me, shall you? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. This is Story Time with the Big Tyme. I am the Big Tyme. This is the value of wrestling, and I thank you for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to dive in depth into the story of the one, the only, Lexis King. Who is Lexis King, and why is he going to be the hottest thing going in NXT when he finally makes his presence felt? Lexis King is a second-generation wrestler, and it's going to be a name that will hopefully live on in the hollow halls of the world of professional wrestling. Lexis King, formerly known as Brian Pillman Jr. Yes, Lexis King is the one that we've all known as Brian Pillman Jr. And Brian Pillman Jr. was born on September 9th, 1993. And of course, he is the son of the late, great Brian Pillman. Brian Pillman Sr. was known around the world as an innovator, a legend before his time. In WCW, Brian Pillman Sr. was known as Flying Brian. He would eventually tag up with the future WWE Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin to form the team of the Hollywood Blondes. They'd eventually go on to win WCW Tag Gold before Brian Pillman would join the Four Horsemen. Yes, if you didn't know, Brian Pillman would become a member of the legendary Four Horsemen. Eventually, in a contract negotiations, Brian Pillman would exit WCW to join ECW, where his loose cannon gimmick would start to really fall into place. Eventually, he'd find his way to WWE, where he would unleash the loose cannon gimmick, where he lived the gimmick on and off TV. Brian Pillman Jr. would eventually join the Hart Foundation and feud with former tag partner Stone Cold Steve Austin. Unfortunately, on October 5th, 1997, Pillman tragically would pass away just hours before a pay-per-view appearance. Pillman would pass away from heart disease at the age of 35. Brian Pillman Jr. was only 4 years old at the time of his father's passing. Brian Pillman's mother was Melanie King. He has four sisters and one brother. And of course, life growing up without a father would be challenging for Pillman Jr. 24 hours after the passing of his father, Pillman's mother would appear live on WWE Raw in an interview with Vince McMahon. Many would call the interview tactless. Pillman doesn't blame WWE for the interview, as he understood they were only there to try to help him and his sisters. But for many years, Pillman would hold a grudge against his mother for doing the interview, feeling she was faking her grief and was only trying to get a payday to buy drugs. At the time, Melanie and Brian Pillman Sr. were going through a divorce. Pillman's relationship with his mother was strained for many years due to drug addiction. Pillman was primarily raised by his father's sister, Linda Pillman. Eventually, Pillman's relationship would improve with his mother once he swept into the squared circle and proclaimed that he was going to follow in his father's footsteps. Melanie would appear regularly on Pillman's Twitch stream and share stories of his father, the late Brian Pillman. Sadly, Melanie would lose her battle to drug addiction as she would pass away to an overdose on June 1st, 2022. In a Dark Side of the Ring episode, they did an in-depth dive into Brian Pillman and his family, and it was a great watch. If you want to go check it out, go watch the Brian Pillman story from Dark Side of the Ring. Brian Pillman Jr. would announce in February 2017 that he would follow in his father's footsteps and become a pro wrestler. He would be trained by Lance Storm at his school, Storm Wrestling Academy, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. His first match would take place on December 18, 2017, when he used the ring name Alex King in a tribute to his sister Alexis Reed and Skylar King. Alexis had previously been a ring valet known as Lexi Pillman before tragically passing away in 2009. In January 2018, Pillman would make his professional ring debut for Combat Zone Wrestling at Dojo Wars 162 against Mike Dale for the ZZW Medal of Valor Championship. Pillman would lose by submission, but the birth of the newest second-generation star had begun. Pillman would have one more match with CZW, tagging up with Teddy Hart to face Anthony Bennett and Jimmy Lloyd at Super Show 5. On January 18, 2020, Pillman would be the surprise 16th entrant in a 16-man battle royal for the IWC at Reload 6.0. He would not win, but appear in the main event, helping IWC Heavyweight Champion Jack Pollock win his match. After the match, Pillman revealed that he had signed a contract with IWC, and part of the agreement granted him a shot at the IWC Championship at the February event. Then on February 15th, in a war of attrition match, Pillman would beat Sam Adonis, Amaris, Lance Archer, Black Taurus, Michael Elgin, Andrew Everett, and Alex Zane for the vacated Warrior Wrestling Championship. The title had been vacated due to an injury to former champion Brian Cage. On September 12, 2020, Pillman would win the Super Indie Championship for IWC. But before all this, though, it was announced in late 2018 that Pillman has signed a contract with Major League Wrestling, or MLW. Pillman was originally paired with his father's WCW rival, Kevin Sullivan. Sullivan would act like a mentor to Pillman, and before eventually Pillman turning on Sullivan, beating him with a cane in a backstage segment, busting Sullivan open. Pillman would then join forces with Teddy Hart and Davey Boy Smith Jr. to become the New Era Hart Foundation. On July 9, 2021, it was reported that Brian Pillman Jr. was no longer part of MLW. May 2019, Pillman would take part in a Casino Battle Royal at All Elite Wrestling's inaugural pay-per-view event, Double or Nothing. Of course, when the pandemic hit, it changed the landscape of the world of professional wrestling, and sadly, many federations and independents had to shut their doors. In July of 2020, MLW was forced to shut their doors, meaning Pillman would be regularly used on AEW. He would wrestle on both the flagship show Dynamite and appear regularly on Dark. Pillman was still under contract, but would be allowed to appear in AEW. He'd make his in-ring return for AEW on July 7th, and on an episode of Dark in a losing effort to Shawn Spears. He'd eventually go on to be used as enhancement talent in matches against Eddie Kingston and Brian Cage. Eventually, Pillman would be paired up with a newcomer, Griff Garrison, and the two would form the team known as the Varsity Blondes. This would be a tribute to his father and Hall of Famer Stone Cold Steve Austin's tag team, the Hollywood Blondes. They'd mostly appear on Dark. But then on May 11th, 2021, Julia Hart would be added to the mix, aligning herself with the Varsity Blondes as their valet. She would valet the team until her turn and joining the House of Black. The Varsity Blondes would have a short feud with the House of Blacks before parting ways. Brian Pillman Jr. looked poised to become something special. Fans were dying to see what he would do next after what looked like the falling out of the Varsity Blondes. Pillman would become All Elite on July 12, 2021, and he would be an official member of the AEW roster, and fans were excited. The buzz in the air was electric. Fans knew Pillman before his AEW rival knew he was something special. And thanks to the Dark Side of the Ring episode, many more fans were interested in what was going to happen with Brian Pillman Jr. They wanted to see what would come next from the son of the loose cannon. Unfortunately, it seems as if AEW let a future star slip through their fingers, and they never did anything to push Brian Pillman. They did not get behind or listen to the fans who were crying out for Pillman. So on July 11th, 2011, Brian Pillman's contract with AEW expired, and he was a free agent. But it wasn't long after the rumor started to buzz and Pillman's name was being talked about in the dirt sheets. The rumor was Pillman was on his way to the WWE. It got the wrestling world buzzing. To many, this seemed not a big surprise. This didn't seem like a big name or a big get by WWE, but others, they knew there was something special on the horizon. It would later be revealed that Brian Pillman had tried out at the Performance Center on July 16, 2023. It eventually signed with NXT in late August of 2023. Promos would start to appear in September, teasing the debut of Pillman. But in October, on an episode of NXT that was going head-to-head with AEW Dynamite, Brian Pillman Jr. would step out of the darkness and then into the light and let the world know he was here. But he'd also let us know that he was not going to use his father's name nor his legacy. No, he was going to forge his own legacy as Lexis King. Now the birth of Lexis King is here. The machine of WWE is behind him, and the sky is the limit for Lexis King. Could they very well be the name of the future? Could he very well be the name of the future? Is he going to change the landscape of NXT? And one day, the landscape of WWE altogether? Lexis King is one of those once-in-a-generation superstars that could be magical. All we can do now is sit and wait and see who Lexis King will become. Lexis King is set to debut at Howling Havoc on NXT. What does the future hold for the one, the only Lexis King? We will all have to sit on the edge of our seats and wait for what will unfold next and what will become of the one and only Lexis King. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for joining me. This has been Story Time with the Big Tyme. I appreciate you all for being here and taking time out of your day to listen to this. We appreciate it. And of course, if you can do me one more favor before we go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That lets you become part of this Value Wrestling family, lets us know that you like what we're doing and helps support us. Joining now gets you in on the ground floor of the Value Wrestling, and you get to become part of the Value Wrestling family. Make sure you ring that bell for notifications so when any new programs come on to the Value Wrestling YouTube channel, you'll be alerted immediately so you can catch the hottest news, the most up-to-date news, the most updated information, whether it's 100% March, the Messiah's message, whether it's a Big Tyme rants, or quick reviews. You never know what's going to appear on here. And of course, we always go live every Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with the weekly roundup. So make sure you join us because that's a live program that you can jump in the chat and join us and join in the discussion of everything going on in the world of professional wrestling for that week. We also have the New Japan Pro Wrestling Rebound over on Spotify with our man Miguel Z. So anything going on with New Japan Wrestling, all you got to do is jump over there on Spotify, and he is breaking it down for you. The Value of Wrestling is growing. We are on Facebook. You can link in the description below to our link tree to find us all across different platforms and all type of social media aspects. Again, this has been Story Time. I'm the Big Tyme. I thank you for being here, and I hope you will join us next time on Story Time with the Big Tyme. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for being here.